So this video is about creating a painting with warm colors, how to incorporate neutrals, and also complementary colors to make the warm colors pop more. And I invite you to paint along with me. If you want to send me your finished product of the painting that you painted while you watch this, you can go to my Instagram and send it to me there. I'm under Emilia Bachelier Art. Thanks. I hope you like it. It's Emilia. I'm doing a video of myself watching myself paint. That sounds silly. Instead of a voiceover. So basically I'm going to talk along while I paint here. And this part, I'm so sorry by the way, it's a little blurry. This is the only part of the video that it's blurry like this. But it's okay, it's not the detailed portion of the video. This is just the part where I block out the canvas and cover it with paint. So I'm going in with reds, magenta, and the point of this video is to talk about how to make your warm colors pop. So it's really simple. You just find complementary colors and variations of them. You can play around with different hues and different values. I like to use teals with my reds and orange hues. I find that turquoise, a really light turquoise, goes really well with peach, and then as well as blue, like a light blue or a king's blue, and of course red with green. So I like to use like a mint to make the red pop, and that's what I'm going to be doing in this video. I'm already starting to add white. Again, I'm so sorry it's blurry. This is a cool thing about a time lapse is that you can just see maybe a full hour of video in a few minutes. But I'm starting to go in with detail. I'm starting to add shapes. Sorry about that. There's a lot of air traffic right now. Selfie time. So this is me just multitasking and trying to be consistent across my platforms, and that selfie was probably for my Instagram stories. But I think I'd do this a few more times throughout the video. Not selfies, but you know, clips and stuff. Ah, we're focusing. That's good. So this is day 2. And it's windy. You stay right there, light. So I'm adding more details. And it gets to a point where I've added enough details where the composition starts to form. And of course it doesn't just form on its own. I can usually see where it's going or where it can go, where I can kind of manipulate it. But basically it's just layers and layers of paint, lots of details, taking clips for IG. And a lot of paint mixing too. I'm proud of myself. I've gotten so much better with my editing skills. Of course, I'm using a whole new program now, but I can just tell the difference. I mean, I used to just film time lapses and do a voiceover, or maybe not even do a voiceover. I would just pick whatever generic song and it would be a super long time lapse with just a song, which, I don't know, I mean, it's interesting, but it's also, I feel, missing a little bit of context. Substance, if you will. So basically I'm keeping the warm colors on my palette right now. And I'm using white to lighten some of them, get some lighter values onto the canvas, adding more details. But those colors really start to pop once I start adding the teals, the blues, even the purple kind of, you know, goes with the more yellow toned peachy hues that I have. I do believe most of the yellow gets covered though. It's fine. The magenta is a little bit purple. I think these colors pair really nicely together. More air traffic. I will probably try to edit the sound out. We'll see how it sounds on the video. And I do like to paint the edges as I go. If you follow me on Instagram and you followed along with the 100 Days of Painting Live or 10 Days of Painting Live challenges that I've done, I've talked about it a lot, where I paint the edges as I go. It's just part of my process, and I feel like there's this spiel of things that I say, you know, my color choices, my style, the composition, keeping a variety of different elements in the painting to make it look interesting. And so that's just one of the things, painting the edges. I love that a 1.5 inch canvas has enough edge to make it, you know, wrap around the painting. And I mean, it doesn't need to be framed, you know, that's the cool part. I mean, it still can be framed, but it doesn't need to be. So this would be day 3. And when I say day 3, it's probably not the 3rd day in a row. Some days there will be, you know, I'll take a break in between and get back to it later. It's just depending on how I feel. And I like to keep a few different paintings going at the same time to keep it interesting and to keep it fresh. That's one thing I guess I kind of appreciate about myself, is that I can drop something and pick up where I left off. I used to be really critical about myself and my style, and I would get a lot of people who would write me on Instagram to, you know, your style looks like this artist, or you're copying that artist. And you know, when I first got into painting about 3 years ago, I wasn't painting in this style at all. I started with oil paints, and I was just experimenting. So I was picking and choosing different techniques from different artists, and, you know, trying to get inspiration from where I could find it. And this was like, you know, my experimental stage. And my own style evolved from that, from all of that experimentation. So, I mean, I would just ignore those people, but I think so many different styles exist now that every new style that comes about is really just like a variation of a few different styles, whatever that artist first took an interest in, and maybe, you know, started incorporating different kinds of mediums and different styles to create their own style, basically. But I really think my style is unique. I like to add a lot of detail. So I'm starting to add that mint color. And it's already making that red pop. The peach is popping because it's a little bit blue, a little bit green, so it kind of works for both. So we really just have two analogous colors that, well, three if you count magenta. The red, the orange, and the magenta. And then I'm going to be using teal and mint and blue to make those colors really stand out and pop. And I'm not using a high value here. It's almost pastel. And so it's bringing that red out, it's bringing that magenta out and the peach without drowning it out, without competing, basically. It's a compliment. So I've lost track. I think this is day 5. Around this point, I do think I took like 3 days off in between from this painting, and I was doing some painting live sessions with some smaller pieces. I believe I finished a holiday piece. I do one of those every year. Well, I can't really say that because I created one last year, so this is my second time making a holiday piece. Holiday palette inspired painting. And I did use last year's piece kind of like as a guide. I used similar colors. But yeah, I like to keep it fresh like that and switch around, move around from large canvases to smaller, and even working on paper. I do enjoy that. But one thing is I don't work large on paper. I just find it a lot simpler to work with. If I'm working on paper, it should be small because then it's easier to find a frame, especially if you're gonna have it matted. I can't imagine having a 36 by 36 inch painting on paper and then having to find a mat or a frame for it. Probably exists, but I don't really deal with that at this moment. But so this, I didn't even mention that from the start. This canvas is 36 by 36 inches with a 1.5 inch depth. And this is an example of just letting loose, painting free, and I feel like I really get that with a large painting. It's much more controlled and small, but it's a small painting. My brushes even change. I use long handle brushes with a large painting and short handle brushes for small paintings. But this is the biggest size that is square shaped that I will tackle at this moment in time. And then a landscape or rectangle shaped painting, the largest piece that I work in is 30 by 48 inches, which is a good size. So I'm just following along here, and there are a ton of details now. And I can really see that we have like a composition that is starting to really form. And I keep flipping it around. At this point in time, I remember seeing a heart in the middle, and I had posted some pictures of it on Instagram. And I really appreciated this one comment that I got that this lady said that, actually, I shouldn't say this lady. She's actually a collector of mine. And she said that it looked like a sour apple, a candy apple and something else. I won't remember it. It's gonna pop into my head right as I'm done filming too. So I think it's just that red too. It's like a candy apple red, which is really cool. I really like when people comment and tell me what they think that they see in my paintings. And there are some common themes. People say that they can see a crowd of people. They can see nature, landscapes. What else? Buildings, like little houses, cityscapes. So yeah, it's always interesting to hear what people think. And I'm really inspired by the ocean. So a good coral reef scene with tons of fish swimming around. Just have all of these different schools of fish, and it's just so clustered with all of these colors, especially if it's a coral reef and you actually have reds and corals and peachy colors and beigey colors of the coral, and then all of the blue and turquoise and green colored fish just popping against it. That is just so beautiful. I love that. But I guess, running into different color combos, like on the street, in stores, on Instagram too, like when I'm looking at interior design and I see like this bright green wall with like orange furniture, or just something that catches my eye and I'm like, I need to paint those colors. So I also keep a little journal too, an art journal, and sometimes I will just grab markers and jot down the colors really quick that I saw, and then later I'll see the colors and I'm like, ooh, this is the palette I'm going with today. But most of the time it's pretty random. I'll just choose a few warm colors, a few cool colors, black and white or Payne's gray, and just go from there. I've been really working on using limited palettes lately because I just found that from the beginning I was creating a lot of mud, and then I would just work really hard to refine it later. And so now I'm creating less mud and really working on more limited palettes to just bring out the colors in the painting more and focus on composition and my style. Because I'm crazy about color. I could really get carried away and just squirt a little bit out of each tube and just play. And then the painting will just look weird, really. So I think for the most part, the composition is pretty set here. It's kind of shaped like a star or like a spiral. You can kind of see it, like that red spot at the top, and then you have these two wings going out, and then these two legs going towards the bottom corners. And This must be day 20. Just kidding, it's not day 20. I don't know which day it is, but it did take me about a couple weeks to finish this painting. I do spend periods of time where I'm just staring at it and trying to figure out what I want to do with it next, which is fine. I don't beat myself up for that. And I'm adding some blue. That blue looks really good next to the red orange in the top left corner. But actually the painting is upside down from how it's going to look at the final stage. It's kind of interesting looking at the painting on camera, which is basically like far away, you know, because when I'm looking at it close up, especially with a large piece, it's a little bit more difficult to visualize. Like I start having all of these thoughts. Are these too many details? Do I need to get rid of some of these details? Is it just too noisy? But if you look closely, a lot of these small details are oriented together in the same color, really. The reds and the orange and the magenta are pretty much together. I added some burgundy in there too. And then the lighter colors are on their own as well. So there's a good separation between all of these details that are clustered together to form, you know, the final piece. The big picture. And then I'm always going around to cover the edges. This is much easier for me to do than to come back to it later once the surface is finished and then paint the edges at the end. This wouldn't be such a big deal if it was a smaller piece, but it would take a lot of color mixing to get around all of those edges. I mean, it's quite a lot of surface area for color mixing, especially when you get into little details. And then, of course, I get to a point where I have all of these paint colors on my palette, and I'm starting to mix random colors together to get neutrals, of course, to create lighter or darker values. But I really think you can never have too many details. I won't lie, sometimes I do look at my paintings and I'm like, you know, maybe a year later or something, and I'm like, oh, I painted that? Like, I'm surprised by myself and how much I've grown as an artist. It's pretty cool when you document your journey like this, and to be able to compare the different stages. It's pretty nice. I'm starting to see a lot more patterns in my work, and you know, just little things that I do that I didn't used to do. And then I'll look back at former paintings and I'm like, oh, I used to do this. Like, I really loved that. I need to incorporate that some more, you know? after that comment about the candy apple red thing. I don't know, I'm sort of leaning towards a candy apple red title. Like, it's really ringing a bell for me. And I think it has to do something with a candy apple, this painting. Because I got rid of that heart in the middle for a reason. I didn't want the painting to look like Valentine's Day. My sister just came out here and I'm like, I'm filming. So I did cut that out. It's funny, the neighbors must be like, why does that lady over there have such a bright light pointing at herself? Like, that's weird. At 6 in the evening and it's dark. Whatever. I don't care. So I'm getting close to the end of this piece. Well, not really. With the time lapse, yes, I'm getting really close. But in reality, unedited version, there's quite a few chunks of 25 minutes left. 25, 25, 25. Yeah, it's about an hour and a half left. It's the detail portion of the video when I use these Caran d'Ache, Neocolor 2, Aquarelle, they're water-soluble crayons, Posca pens, and also I use Stabilo Woodies. But my favorite are the Posca pens. I love them. It's kind of like if you're using this really fine brush, and I like that variety when you can see a thick brush stroke, and then like everything in between down to like the tiny little brush strokes. I love circles and ovals and creating circles inside of circles and shading them. It's so, I don't know, it's my thing. There's tons of them in this painting. If I had to count them, oh my goodness, I would be here all week. And then cool thing about these Posca pens too is it's like a runny paint. So you can really like make a mark and then move it around with a paintbrush or dilute it, make it disappear at the end, make it fade. So using all of these different art supplies, it doesn't necessarily make the painting look like mixed media. It still looks like a painting. It looks like just one medium, but it gives the painting so much dimension. And here I'm bringing down that red a little bit without actually using paint. I'm just using the crayons, and then with a wet brush I'm moving that crayon around. I'm melting it. Make sure to stick around to the end of the video because I do show close-ups of the finished product. Or if you're already bored and you just want to skip ahead, go ahead. I'm not here to tell you to stick around to the very end. But I gotta say, I have enjoyed following along with other artists' live sessions and YouTube videos. It's kind of cool, like having a friend to paint along with, and to have real friends too, that, you know, in-person friends to paint with. That's cool. Or like on a Zoom chat. That's awesome. It's really motivating. Ah, I knew it threw one of these in here. Watch till the end to see close-up shots. And then here comes the signature. That means it's done. Wow, I found the perfect spot. You can see it's Christmas. There's a tree in the background and cactus for Arizona. It's done.